Today we'll be exploring Vaisakhi, the most well-known and celebrated festival in the Sikh calendar. We all know the common narrative, but in this episode we'll go beyond that with the help of J.S. Gadawal's Master of the White Hawk and have our questions answered by Dr. Kamleep Singh. Together we'll explore whether there are more Granths. So join us today as we take a journey down the rabbit hole of written sources regarding Vaisakhi. Be sure to check out the other extracts or listen to the full podcast episode to find out more. Last question, and this is also because I can notice my camera's going to die, the battery's running low. But last question is, I wasn't actually planning to ask you about this, but it got my interest because Chopra Singh says there are two Granths prepared by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. One was called the Samundar Sagar Granth and the other was called the Avtar Leela Granth. Kesar Singh Chibbar adds that the Samundar Sagar Granth was thrown into the river by the order of Guru Gobind Singh Ji in 1701 and claims to have seen 91 lines of this Granth. Avtar Leela Granth is said to have been an unbound folio, just like the Samundar Sagar Granth. So for those people who are listening, unbound folio just means loose pages essentially, so it's not been bound into a physical book. And again, Avtar Leela Granth was said to have been scattered during various battles. Jibbar claims to have seen 7 folios of the Avtar Leela Granth in the possession of a Sikh in Lahore. All I want to know is, what has your historical research shown about first of all, the existence of these two Granths, considering references are very little? And then secondly, what role did they play? And then also, what is interesting is the modern narrative argues that these Granths were lost when the Sikhs were crossing the river around the Battle of Chamkaur and the siege of Anandpur Sahib. Kesar Singh Chibbar says that Guru Gobind Singh Ji, under his own command, tells the Sangat to throw them in the river. What is going on?
Before I go to that, I want to go back to the Devi.
Sure.
And so Chopra Singh says to the Guru, I read the Kalustat every day, but what's mentioned by the questions and answers in there. And then the Guru replied, from my heart and soul, I swore to invoke you to help me complete the Granth. And that's a part of Maharaj's Bani, right? And then Maharaj advised Chopra Singh to read up to the end of Avtar Leela Pachitra Natak and get the answer. And then from that narration, the questions and answers are about the Guru's love of Dharam.
Yeah.
And that's what the Bani itself has been compiled. Because you see, people look at those questions again in a Niramalal, romantic, philosophical way. But that's the whole point Maharaj writing those questions. Because remember, what's the invocation of Kalu? Salablu Piracha. I invoke the Salablu, the iron, the steel, the sword. And that's what the questions are to do with, about what is war, what is righteous. It's all related to that. And so Maharaj says, look at the Pachitra Natak with Bhattaram there. After that, then the incident of Devi comes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to read you what I've put here just to make it short. A short period later, a very controversial event took place that is recorded in all early hagiographies, which is the incident of the Devi. The Singh Sabha has seen it as something very controversial and a misrepresentation that has been added in. I'm just reading this in day language. I've written it much more complicated. It was later edited out on the Pant Prakash by Veer Singh, which I already talked about.
Discussed in the last podcast.
And including the works of Bhai Mani Singh in other books, yeah? A very detailed account is in the School of Prakash of his talk Singh. It's in the Chopra Singh Rayatnama, which you already said.
Yep.
It's also in the Das Guru Katha of Kankan.
Yep.
And in that, I think it's in the Encyclopedia of Sikhism, it says, certain factual errors such as ascription to Guru Gobind Singh worship of the goddess Durga have also crept into the work. Yeah? Okay? So the earliest account by Kankan narrates that the Guru was called by Pandit to perform a sacred fire in order to make the Devi materialize. At the summit of Naina Devi mountain next to Nath Prasad, the Guru is said to have sit with the Pandit and create compositions of the praise of the Devi as the offerings were given to the Havan. The Pandits are unable to make the divine feminine manifest, but the Guru succeeds by throwing all the offerings on. The Devi manifests as a blinding light. The feminine divine tells the Guru that she'll give him whatever he requests, but sacrifices are required. The Guru then says, know that the Shakti, the power of God, the Devi as the divine sword, and asks for 5 heads. This, you can see the connection here of the Obra Sunjab, yeah? In the other early accounts of references to the Apocrypha in relation to the incident course in 1751, author writes that as the Devi became manifest, the verses shuttle the Devi were perfected, that he employs a term used in the Ugrad Lakti in his own narration, praise the divine feminine. even more explicit is the use of the ending of the Ugradanti, and these verses are very pure perfected. The author then writes that the songs of the Kirin of the Devi were made. Furthermore, there's an explicit relationship of the verses expressing the greatness of the Devi, the divine feminine, and some sections of the Kalusta.
Yeah.
In the Basavli Nama of 1769, before Kishore Singh introduces the subject, he asks Sikhs not to get angry.
So it's actually been controversial for a very long time.
Yeah. He then quotes heavily from the beginning of the Ugadati in the penultimate last quotation of Ugadati. He quotes the verse also as the third way. He states that the pant was started by a favor from the deity. So a favor doesn't mean like a blessing. It means like someone said,
You owe me one.
yeah, like she owes the guru one.
Yeah.
And from the whole typical Sab narrative, yeah. Shipper writes that this favor was the Bani and that the Divine Mother Devi Mata gave gift in the favor of the Pant. Bani Varavaj. The boon was to destroy the Turks invading Mughals, and he gives Bhatta Bahadur as an example how the Shakti destroyed the Turks through him. He connects the defeats of the Turk with the lion Kabir Bajbid Chopi Sakambalish Karnakata. He then quotes the Charitra of Pichana aforementioned that Singh should not dream of any other woman other than his own wife.
Which is what we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sarup Das Padla, writing in 1776, Mehma Prakash provides a narration with a theme related to the warrior culture. He states that Chandi is synonymous with the double-edged sword, Kande Kapod.
Yeah.
That's clearly stated in the previous text. And, in Buddhist iconography, you see that a lot of the goddesses, they have the double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And in Hindu iconography.
Yeah, it's massive in Indian culture.
Yeah. In his version of it, a miracle only takes place in front of the Guru and a Kirpan is left. Therefore, the emphasis is the aim of the ball, which is to initiate the Kshatriya actions. And they say that Khanda and Anprasad came from the Devi.
And that's the one that they claim is the one that was used in
His
6.
first art.
Yeah.
In verse 4, he explicitly states that the Khanda is equal to the Devi. Right? These are not my words, Sangat. So don't throw stones at me. I'm just telling you what the old
research says, yeah.
authors have said. The Bible of the Navani is said to be narrative of the Varan Bible, thus expounded by Mani Singh, has references to the Apocrypha composition, the Bhagavad distorted in connection to the incident of Devi. I'm reading this really fast, yeah? This book contains many references to Dasam Granth states that the Bani is both born in devotional. Within this work is dialogue with Sikh and the Sangha to ask by Mani Singh the meaning behind Chitra. By Mani Singh replies, the meaning behind Chitra Prakyan Dasam Granth is Yudha Mehbani, Gyan Mehbani, Amrita Mehbani, Charitra Mehbani. That the Dasam Granth Sahib is an utterance for war, for knowledge and spirituality and strategies for the secular world. This would resonate with the military mystical initiation of the double-edged sword. After the incident of the Devi, Kakdan relates the Guru inspired the Bani of Akal to be repeated. This is a term not used in the narrative for any other of the Gurus. It's probably in reference to the 10th Guru's own compositions where Akal is repeated within them. Additionally, Kakdan narrates Khalsa as distinct from the Hindus and Muslims like the Ugradat after Khalsa. Earlier, we talked about copper plates. There's also one there. We talked about Siddhartha Mara Granth and, and the Hukam Nama that was given to that family. And then the Khalsa Amrit and Jat goes on forth.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get to the Vidyasagar or Samun Sagar Granth.
Yeah, of Pragya.
And so we know from the history that as the Guru was leaving, Anand Prasad was sacked.
Yep.
And Shipper writes, a large scripture was made. He counted the pages, which you've already quoted here. And basically, this is the interesting part. Yeah? In 1758, he's saying in 1701, some of it was pointing to a stream, yeah?
Yeah.
And some of its pages, he said, survived. And he goes, the Guru dictated another scripture in other portions with the play of the stars was completed with other compositions that were not bound. Yeah?
Oh, and that's the Tavlila that we were talking.
Yeah. So Shipper also states that, and that's also Chopar Singh, they're literate Sikhs, yeah? And basically, this still exists. So the Vidyasagar, which had Guru Gobind Singh's handwriting in it and corrections, that was the translations of various material, Vedic, Puranic, Sufi literature. It was all written into Gurmukhi, and a massive Granth was made, a huge Granth. The Maharaja of Patiala and Multi Bagh Palace still has that.
So it wasn't destroyed?
It wasn't destroyed. It was put into the stream, but it was collected after.
Okay.
And there were actually 2 copies. Yeah, there were 2 copies. I don't know what's happened to one copy, but there's one copy of it exists.
Okay.
And they say that in 1984 there was one copy of it at the Darbar
And it gets destroyed.
by St. Dorkson Library. But the Maharaja Patiala, he still has that other copy, thankfully, yeah? And that's the Vidya Sagar Granth of Vidya. And Kavi Santokh Singh said it was put into the stream by Guruji and was taken by hill princes. Then one report says one Granth of the Raja Sirwar has, while the Raja of Mandi has another, which, see, that's true, yeah?
Interesting.
And some of the poetries of Kavis were compiled together by Maharaja Narinder Singh, Bhai Veer Singh, Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the Vidya Darbar. So there's books of these compositions, yeah, which I think Padam Saab presented. Now you talk about Atar Leela in being quoted, and then you see Kesha Singh Shipper also said, and there was another one not bound. That's Sarblo Granth, because remember the play of the Avtars, yeah. And so, the play of the Sarblo Avtar and the other Avtars, for me, that's Sarblo. And that fits into the Sambat that is given as well, loosely of Sarblo Granth. The Sambat of Sarblo Granth is around 1698 at the beginning, which means it was commenced probably around that time.
Same time. Yeah.
Yeah, or the other way looking at it is possibly completed, yeah?
Yeah,
So you've got like a timeline of 10 years, yeah? And then also it has the Khalsa Shabad there. Khalsa Wurdu Bekas around the Khalsa Amrit Sanjar here.
And that's from Sarblo.
Sarblo, yeah. So it makes sense of that again, this date 1698, the sacking, the Avtar Leela, the mention of it.
Yeah.
So actually, who says it's called Sarblo Granth? Inside it's called Mangalacharan Granth. It's got loads of names for itself there.
I see what you're saying. So it's actually
Yeah, and remember it's about Sarblo Avtar.
Yeah.
And so Avtar Leela could be there.
Connect.
And it can't be Jobi Avtar.
Because that's him, that's him, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my answer to that. Hope that will work.
No, I appreciate that. That has been almost 3 hours of questions and answers. So thank you, obviously, for taking the time to do that. I desperately want to get a copy of your thesis now because of how big it is, and equally how much information is probably in there. But that's a separate conversation. I just want to say thank you.
It's pretty a lot of work with Guru Gobind Singh's grace. One day I will publish it.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
I'll put it online for free. And so, no worries.
Yeah, so no, just thank you for your time. I hope people listening to this appreciated it, but thank you. Guruji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.